What is the worst way to end a player's career? You might think of them having a terrible performance and getting immediately released following said performance. Jeremy Guthrie probably takes the spot of worst final career appearance. On April 8, 2017, he allowed 10 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning pitched. Guthrie was released a few days later, never returned to the big leagues, and retired that summer. Oh, and it was his 38th birthday that day. Across a nearly 1,800 inning career, that one game raised his career ERA 0.05 points. So there you have it, the worst final game an MLB player ever had. But what about something more grand? Let's look at the context of the situation. What about a player whose final appearance cost their team the win? Not just the win, but the playoffs. Two immediate players come to mind in Scott Linebrink and Scott Rowland. Linebrink allowed the go-ahead run to score in the 13th inning in the famous Game 162 between the Braves and Phillies in the 2011 season. The Braves lost that game and were eliminated from the playoffs, blowing the biggest September lead in MLB history. Linebrink never pitched in the majors after that game. Scott Rowland came to bat with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning in the decisive Game 5 of the National League Division Series in 2012. With the tying runs on base, he struck out to end the game and retired in the offseason. While those two scenarios are not the ideal way to finish a career, there is one player that had perhaps the most anticlimactic finish to a career, something that transcends everyone else. The player in question is Kenny Lofton. Lofton had a long career, playing 17 seasons from 1991 to 2007. He played mostly with the Cleveland Indians, but bounced around a lot towards the end of his career. He was a speed demon, leading the league in stolen bases 5 consecutive years and finishing his career with over 600 stolen bases. He has a 107 adjusted OPS in his career, nearly 2,500 hits, and finished with a WAR of 68.4. He might be the greatest player in baseball history, not elected in the Hall of Fame, who did not use PEDs or was involved in some sort of controversy. But that's a topic for another video. There is one stat Lofton holds that most in baseball history do not: his playoff games played. Lofton played for a dominant Cleveland team in the 90s that consistently made the playoffs and was constantly signed or traded to playoff contending teams later in his career. Entering his final season in 2007, Lofton ranked 8th all-time in playoff games played, but had 0 World Series wins. 10 separate seasons he made the playoffs, including 3 World Series, and hadn't won it all. Entering 2007, Lofton was the only player in the top 15 playoff games played not to win a ring, and was one of 3 in the top 30. Entering his age 40 season, Lofton signed with the Texas Rangers in what would be the final season of his career. Texas got off to a slow start and were 15 games under 500 by June. At the trade deadline, Texas shipped Lofton off to Cleveland to help in their postseason run. This would be Lofton's 10th and final season playing in Cleveland, the team he had all of his career success with. Lofton became the team's everyday left fielder and helped the Indians reach the postseason for the first time since 2001. Coincidentally, 2001 was also the last time Lofton played for the Indians prior to his midseason trade. The Indians stunned the Yankees in the American League Division Series, beating the club 3-1 to advance to the American League Championship Series for the first time in 10 years. It was Lofton himself who scored the winning run in Game 2 in the 11th inning, one of the most infamous ALDS games in history, and you probably know why. This would be the 7th LCS for Lofton, hoping to make it to the World Series one last time and finally win it. 2 World Series losses with Cleveland and 1 with the Giants has left him without a ring despite being in the playoffs year in and year out. Cleveland would face the Boston Red Sox in the American League Championship Series. Winner goes to the World Series, the loser goes home. After Boston won Game 1, the Indians came back to win Games 2 through 4. In Game 3, Lofton started the scoring with a 2-run home run. Cleveland would go on to win that game by 2 runs. It was also in Game 3 where Lofton broke Rickey Henderson's record for most career stolen bases in the postseason. Up 3-1, the Indians were 1 win away from going to the World Series. Boston proceeded to destroy Cleveland in Games 5 and 6, winning 7-1 and 12-2 in those games, and the series went to a decisive Game 7 in Boston. Game 7 featured a pitching rematch of the Game 3 starters, Daisuke Matsuzaka for Boston and Jake Westbrook for Cleveland. Matsuzaka allowed 4 runs over 4 2/3 innings pitched, taking the loss in Game 3. Westbrook allowed 2 runs over 6 2/3 innings, earning the victory. The season came down to this. Boston was hoping for their second World Series appearance in 4 seasons, while Cleveland was hoping for their first appearance in a decade. I don't think it's a stretch to say nobody wanted to win more than Kenny Lofton. This was his 95th playoff game, which, at the time, ranked 6th all-time, yet he had nothing to show for it. Win here and beat Colorado in the World Series, and Lofton will put the finishing touch on his long, Hall of Fame-worthy career, winning a World Series with the club he had the greatest success with. In Game 7, Boston scored a run in the first, second, and third inning to take a small yet critical 3-0 lead. Cleveland came back to score a run in the fourth and fifth inning to cut the lead to 1 run. Jake Westbrook held Boston in check for 6 innings, while Matsuzaka and Hideki Okahima held the lead for Boston. Lofton came to bat in the top of the 7th inning with 1 out and nobody on base in what could be the final plate appearance of his career. Facing Okahima, Lofton popped up to shallow left field and shortstop Julio Lugo dropped the ball, allowing Lofton to reach second base. It went down as an error, but more importantly, it made up for Lofton's gaffe earlier in the game. In the top of the 5th, down 2 runs, Lofton led off the inning with a fly ball off the Green Monster, but a perfect bounce and relay by Manny Ramirez led to Lofton getting thrown out at second base. Replay shows Lofton just beat the tag, but nevertheless, he was called out. Who knows how that inning would have unfolded had he been called safe or remained at first base. I don't blame Lofton for trying for second base. His team was down 2 in the 5th inning in Game 7. You never know when the last opportunity your team will have to score. Despite being 40 years of age, Lofton still ran well. He stole over 20 bases during the regular season and an additional 3 during the postseason. Manny didn't have the best arm in the world and was only able to throw out Lofton thanks to a perfect bounce and bare-handed pickup. The events of this play are about to make themselves present for what happened in the next at-bat. Let's look at the situation before seeing the events of the next at-bat. It's Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. Winner of this game goes to the World Series, loser goes home. There's 1 out in the top of the 7th inning, and the Indians are down 1 run. Speedy outfielder Kenny Lofton is at second base as the tying run. In the last 27 1/3 innings, the Indians as a team scored a total of 5 runs. They took a commanding 3-1 lead, but faltered in games 5 and 6. They were down 3-0 early in Game 7, but chipped away to make it a 1-run game. One big hit here could erase the poor performances of the last 2 games and send Cleveland back to the World Series. At that point, It was 60 years since Cleveland's last World Series win. It was the 11th postseason series for Kenny Lofton, and he's yet to win a single World Series. The fate of the Indians and Kenny Lofton depends on what happens here. At bat is light-hitting outfielder Franklin Gutierrez. Entering this at bat, Gutierrez was batting .185 in the postseason, but was a key contributor this game already as he scored the second Cleveland run back in the 5th inning. If Cleveland wants to keep their season alive, they need a hit, and they need it now. So, what happened in this at bat?
Hard hit, and that's a fair ball. Lofton will round third. He stopped. And it's first and third, one out.
Third base coach Joel Skinner's decision to hold Lofton at third may be the most overlooked gaffe in playoff history. Kenny Lofton, who stole over 20 bases as a 40-year-old, who was in full motion round third base before Ramirez ever touched the ball, was held up. Manny Ramirez, at this point in his career, didn't have a great outfield arm and was clearly looking to throw to second base rather than home plate. Lofton would have easily scored on this play, tying the game, but he didn't. We can see why Skinner held Lofton, and it goes back to that 5th inning play. Lofton was thrown out by Ramirez, but only because of a perfect, and I mean perfect bounce, barehanded grab, and a bang-bang play that probably should have been ruled safe. If Manny doesn't field and throw that ball absolutely perfectly, Lofton would have been safe at second. I have no doubt that play was in Skinner's mind, and with the ball bouncing off the sidewall, Skinner held Lofton in fear he might get thrown out again. That's why Skinner held up Lofton, but it's the wrong choice. As said plenty of times before, Lofton is fast, Ramirez doesn't have a great arm, and the fact that the Indians were ice cold offensively in the past 3 games, Lofton had to be sent. It's too big of a gamble not to. Alas, Lofton was on third base, Gutierrez on first, and Casey Blake came to bat. On the first pitch he saw, he grounded into an inning-ending double play. Boston scored 8 runs in the 7th and 8th innings and led 11-2 entering the 9th. Lofton came to bat one final time, lining out to left field. Boston won the game and eventually the World Series. Had Lofton been sent home and scored, anything could have happened. Instead of Boston going on a tear, perhaps the Indians do instead. It's easy to say it wouldn't have mattered had Lofton scored because the Red Sox won by 9 runs anyway, but saying that is not true. Every little variable, from who's pitching to what pitches are thrown to how the batter takes his approach, all varied because Lofton doesn't score on this play. If Lofton scored, perhaps the Red Sox bring in a new pitcher, or perhaps Casey Blake wouldn't have swung on the first pitch. If Cleveland was not losing, perhaps Rafael Betancourt pitches differently than he did. He would end up allowing 7 runs to the Red Sox. Anything could have happened. It really goes to show what one tiny decision could do for your franchise and for a player. Lofton may be one of the greatest players in Cleveland baseball history, but he'll go down as the player with the most playoff games played to never have won a World Series. It's the most anticlimactic way to end a career, and I only wish the best for Lofton now in his post-playing career.